Let's take the yesterday's problem and we'll see how to fix the things which I told you yesterday. This is my C object and I have variable and this is the method in the object, and this method is saying this.bookname. So whenever we have a method and I use this inside that method, it always refers to this object. So when I say this.bookname, it is saying actually it is updating this book name. I generally don't prefer to write a C.bookname because this name changes in the programming. It changes often and many times we don't have the proper name. Okay, so we don't generally call based on the name. So if I put C everywhere, then this does not make sense because tomorrow this function is used with different name and I cannot put the C name inside it. So, and when I create a function inside this function, then this will be referring to the global object. So this is not the C object, it is the global object as I explained yesterday. So how to, let's say if I want to use the C object inside this function and inside this function, then how to do that? So to do that, inside the say function, I will create another variable. I will name it as, for example, self equal to, I will pass this. So when I will say self equal to this, inside this function, this means what? C object. So self is also what it means, C object. So when I say, this is the name I gave, I can give X, Y, Z, I can give blah, 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 anything I can give. I'm just putting self for better understanding. Otherwise, I can put any name. I can put X, I can put Y, I can put Z, anything. But I just put self to make it little clear that we are talking about the self. Then these two functions are created inside the function. That means these two functions can access any variable inside the parent function, that is this function. So instead of using this, I will use self. So I will use self here also. When I use self, it is not referring to the global object, it is referring to this object, this one. So this is basically the C and it is given assigned to self, and self is passed inside everywhere. So I can use self here also. Everywhere I can use self now. So let's see how it works. Now if I say C.say, you will see inside ABC it is referring to C object. Inside XYZ it is referring to the C object. So that means I will not use this inside anywhere. I will use the self. So this is a very common practice in the programming language, and I have used this self many times in my programming code whenever I have to go inside the function. Okay, so this was the explanation since yesterday because I said that this is pending in this part. Okay, let me go further now. Okay, let's do this. If you want to note down, you can note down. Otherwise, if you have yesterday noted down yesterday, then no need to do that. Okay, so let's take one more thing now. Okay, let's create a class. First, I'll create a function. For example, function A1. Inside A1, I will say this dot name equal to, or I will put some different name. First name equal to Jack. This dot last name equal to Bauer. Okay, so these two variables I'll create. So instead of passing name here, I can also pass as a parameter here in this one. So I can say fn as a first name, ln as a last name. Then I can put fn here and I can say ln here. Okay. So whatever I have passed, it will be assigned to first name and the last name. I will create this function. Now what I will do, I will create object based on this function. So I will say var h2 equal to a1, new a1. I will say new. If I put new, that means this becomes the object, and this will be referring to this a1. So a1 I will pass Jack as a name and Bauer as a last name. So only thing, the difference in the previous example, I was not passing parameter. Here I am passing parameter, and I'll create it. Let's see what h2 is. H2 is first name Jack. Since whatever fn I pass, it will be assigned to this dot first name, and this dot first name will come here as a first name to h2. h2 is the object of a1, so I'm getting a1 name here, but inside object is like this one. So I can say h2 dot first name is Jack, h2 dot last name is Power. Now, if you see this, there is a proto object here. You know, if I open this proto object, you will see there is a constructor. There is a constructor property of this one. So whenever I create object, always a constructor property is added to this object. So for example, if I say h2.constructor, it is nothing but the function which I used to create this object. So when I say h2.constructor, what it is? It is nothing but the function which I used to create this object. And it is not directly visible here, but it is visible inside this proto property. We'll talk about this prototype property, or in proto, you can say proto also. In this proto property, we'll talk little bit more next week. But just remember that whenever I do this h2 constructor property is nothing but the function from which I created this object. So next time if I want to create the object, I can call a1 like I did here, new a1, or I can also say like this, var h3 equal to, I can say new a1 is the one way by passing Tony dash anything. So I can say in the similar way I used it here. I can say in the similar way I can create a new h3 with different name, but I can also say h2.constructor, because h2.constructor is nothing but the same function which I used to create the h2. So instead of new a1, I can say new h2.constructor, because I want to create from a1. But let's say I can use a1 also, but I am using it h2.constructor as another way, another type of call. So both are actually same. If I use this one to create this, or I use h2.constructor to create a new object, it both are same. So it depends how you are creating. You can create in either of these two ways to create the new object. So right now if I create h3 like this, I will say h3. So I'm getting first name and last name. Similarly, I get it here. And if I do ht.constructor, it is the same function a1, this one. So the only difference is in h3 creating is we took h2.constructor in creating the h3. And h2.constructor is nothing but this function which I used to create the h2. So just a simple, I create a function, I create object from the function. Once I create object from the function, it has a property called the constructor. And I can create any new object from this function, but using this h2.constructor, because I already have h2 in my object. So there is, just this is a naming thing which we added, that we can create same object with this h2.constructor, or we can create with a1. In both the ways, I can create the object. And this constructor is nothing but the object. So if I do type of h2.constructor, type of h2.constructor is the function, because h2 is, this is the function and it created from the function. Okay, so this is the function, because the reason is this is the function. Initially I built it, and though I created it, so when I say h2.constructor, it is nothing but this function. So type is function, and actually the parent of function is object. So everything starts from the object. Object creates the function, and function creates the object. So the first object is created, first thing is created is object, which we can verify it here. When I do the prototype of here, prototype of a1, I am getting a function, and then if I go again the prototype, I am getting the object. So basically this is a hierarchy which I will explain you next week. Today is not that topic. So originally we always create the object. JavaScript originally has everything object, and from object we created a function, and from function we created this h3 new object. So basically this object is the JavaScript object to create all other objects. So this is the base object to create other objects, which we'll talk late next week. Don't worry about this part. Just remember that when I create object, it has a constructor property, which is the function used to create this object. So type of constructor is function. But if I create object like this simple, if I create object like curly bracket, now o.constructor is the object, and now here type of o.constructor So since this is a function, you can see this is a function, but it's an object function. Basically, it is object function which derives all other objects. So o.constructor is always a function, because it is created from where it is created. Constructor means from where it is created. So let me go through one again, because I talk too much. Maybe you misunderstand me. Let me go through again. So if I create a function x and I create object y from this x, and then I say constructor. So it is saying the function x which I used to create this object. Okay, now if I do y, it is object, and when I go to the parent, so constructor of the x, y is this function x. When I go to parent of this, that is the prototype, it is constructor is object. So this object, though it is a function, it is the core of all the objects and functions created in JavaScript. So this is the base object. So everywhere you will see this one, that this one is the base one from where we created all our JavaScript. Okay, so for today's point of view, just remember that we are talking about y.constructor, and y.constructor is a function which I used to create this object. Is that clear? So we are not calling anything. We will not be calling y.constructor anytime. We are just trying to understand that what is y.constructor, and y.constructor is a function from which my object is created. So since y is created from this function, so we will say y dot constructor is a function x. If I create a simple object o equal to curly bracket, then since we have not created with from any function, so by default it is created with the original core object of the JavaScript. So o dot constructor here will be that core object, which from where everything is created. Okay, so o dot constructor is always a function which we use to create the current object. Okay, so I will write down so that maybe you can so I create object using a function with new keyword. Okay, so let's say var h2 equal to new a1 as we saw. Now h2 dot constructor is a function which represents the core function used to create h2 object. So this h2 object is created from a1. So when I do h2 dot constructor, I will be able to see from where this h2 is created. And if I would have created h2 with simple curly bracket, then h2 dot constructor will be, since I have not used any function, so h2 dot constructor here in this case will be the default object function which JavaScript used to create other objects. So this is the default one or internal JavaScript object which is used to create the different objects. So since in this case I created my function, so h2 dot constructor is pointing to a1. But here I did not use any function, I used just the curly bracket. Then constructor will point to function object, which is the default JavaScript object to create other objects. So this is also function, but it is used to create all other objects in JavaScript. So just take a note of this one. We have to talk more about constructor and prototype soon in next week. I don't want to burden that thing today. Today only I want to explain that h2 dot constructor will point to the function which is used to create the h2 object. Just write down this point so that you will remember it. Okay, so we will talk more about this constructor and prototype next week, which is the core of objects in JavaScript. But today only I want to explain this line, that constructor is the function which used to create this object. That is the only purpose of this exercise. Okay, let's see one more thing. I create a function C1. Okay, and I will make the object from it. And I will say this dot a equal to 1. Okay, now I will return an object. What I am returning? An object. B is equal to 2. So what I am doing? I am create a function with this dot a equal to 1 and I am returning b colon 2. Now this is the function. Now I will create object from this function. C2 is equal to new C1 here like this. Now tell me, when I put C2 dot A, will value of 1 will come, or if I put C2 dot B, will value of 2 will come? What is the right? Will it come whether this line will come right, that is C2 dot A will show 1 or C2 dot B will show 2? What is the right? This one or this one? Whether C2 dot A will show 1 or C2 dot B will show 2, or both will valid, because I am returning this object. So that means from here I am getting this return object which I am assigning to C2. So what will be right? C2 dot A equal to 1 is right, or C2 dot B equal to 2 is right, or both is valid? Okay, Ali is saying both is valid. Sonu is saying both is valid. I need answers, more answers. Should be both. Yeah, I know. This is something you have to guess. Yes, she's saying both. Okay, let's check. Let's check. No other answer is coming. So let's take C2 dot B. Let me do C2 dot B. Answer is coming 2. So this part is right. Now let me do C2 dot 1. Do C2 dot A. I'm getting undefined. That means this is not working. Only this part is working. So that means whenever we create a function and return is the object, so whenever the return is the object, then this part will not work. This part is gone. Only this part will work. So if I check the C2, so it is directly created with the object. It is not created with the C1. Why C1 is not there? Because once we return the object, this C1 is gone, and we are getting only this object, and this is the literal object. And I showed you before that literal object, the parent of constructor of literal object is the object function. So this is the parent of the literal object. So whenever I return an object, then this has no meaning. This has no value. This is gone. We cannot use it again. So this whole part will be now pointing to this part, not this part. Is that clear? So this return part is object. So whenever we return object, this part is gone. Now object means it can be object, it can be array, or it can be function. Whenever I pass these three are the, though their name is different, but they are considered object in the JavaScript. So if I pass return any of these three here, the result is same. The C2 will be pointing to them, not this. Okay, so when I say object, it means it is an array also one type of object, and function is also one type of object. Everything in JavaScript is, these three things are kind of objects in JavaScript. Though they are different name, but their core value is objects. So they are considered as object in the JavaScript. Because if I go to parent of them, it is an object. So then this will not work. Only this part will work. So whenever you will manipulate it, you will be manipulating only this part. Now let's create one similar one. Okay, let's create one similar one. Here I am returning 1, 2. Okay, 2. And then I will say var C2 equal to new C1. Now tell me, if I say print C2, whether it will show 2 or it will show A equal to 1, an object. What will be the here answer? When I print C2, will it show 2 or it will show C2 dot A equal to 1, this part? So now is saying 2. Nikhil is saying 2. Yes, is saying 2. Okay, so previously I told you it should be object or array or function, and this is numeric. Okay, this is numeric, so it doesn't come with object, array or function. This is a primitive data type. So when I type C2, this 2 has no value in it. This will work. So if I say C2, you will see I get object A equal to 1. I did not get 2 value because this is not object. If we get past object, array or function, then C2 will point to them. Otherwise, if I pass string, boolean, numeric, null, undefined, then it will point to this one. Is that clear? Okay. So one more thing I will do, small thing today, and then I will close today. So generally these objects or array or functions, these three are common, but for practical example I will use object because showing the practical example for this is not very learning purpose. So for learning purpose, if I use object directly, you will be able to learn easily, but this will hold true for all the three. Okay, so if I have a object original equal to how many as 1. So how many is the variable name and value is 1. So when I say original, I am getting how many equal to 1. Right? I am getting how many equal to 1. Now what I will do, I will create a copy variable and I will pass original. Okay, so what I am doing, I am putting original and putting it to the copy. So remember, in JavaScript, if I have a primitive data type like number or string or boolean, they are passed by the value. They are passed by value. So what it means, I will create one more example, a equal to 1, and I create another b equal to a. So what I am doing, I am saying b equal to a. So b has the value of a. So I will check b, it is 1, and I will say a, it is 1. Why? Because b is the copy of a. Now if I change b to some value different, b equal to 2. Now b has become 2, a is still 1. That means both are different. Both are depend on their own value. Okay, so that means if I change b, a will not change, or if I change a, b will not change. Okay, but objects in JavaScript is passed by reference. Passed by reference means I created original how many equal to 1 and I created copy equal to original. That means both are same. Now if I check copy equal to original, it is coming true because both are same. Now if I change the original, I will say original dot how many equal to 2. So what I am changing? Original. I am changing the value of how many in original. Let's see what happened to copy. Copy is also changed to how many equal to 2. So that means in JavaScript, when I copy objects, both are tied together. And if I change one, it will be changed in another also. So if I change copy, for example, I changed in the copy dot how many equal to 3. And if I check the original, it is also become 3. So both are tied. So now either you change in copy or original, the result will be same, and you can use any of them. So this is called passed by reference. This will be also true to the function. So for example, I create a function x and I get some parameter as param1. And what I will do then, I will say param1 dot how many equal to 4, for example. Now I will call x and I will pass original in that. Okay, so original is passed into this param, and param dot how many is changed to 4. Now if I try to check the original, it is changed to 4. So though I did not change original to 4, I passed original in this as a parameter 1, and param dot how many got changed here in this function, and when I check the original, it is also changed. Because when I pass original here, though it is changing the param1, this param1 actually referencing to the original in the memory location, and actually this param1 is changing the original, not the local param1. Because this is the object, it is always passed by reference. So whenever we change here, it will be changed in original, and also it will change in the copy also. So copy will also point to same thing. So all three things are now tied. Even if I change original or param1 or copy, all three things will give me same result. Is it clear? So in JavaScript, whenever you copy object, both are tied together. But whenever you copy the primitive, then they are not tied together. Both have different things. Both can be changed differently. Any questions? If you want, you can write down this part. This is a small thing. And just to remember that in JavaScript, objects are passed by reference. Primitive data types are passed by value. Okay, so that's it for today, but I will give some information today what I will be going from next week.